Famous lawyer. He is Rain's official, legal eagle. He has done, what is it, 20,000 million real estate transactions?
The first part there.
20,000 real estate transactions plus. He's done deals for me, he's done deals for people on my team, he's helped me draft joint venture agreements. He knows it all. And that is why it's such a privilege to have him come speak to us. Now, he's going to be talking about creative real estate strategies. And I thought that would be a great segue because nowadays people are wanting to enhance their real estate experience by doing quick return deals. So that would mean something like maybe assigning a contract that you have under contract, maybe something like an agreement for sale, and a couple other interesting little strategies as well. So Barry's going to give us a nice little buffet, a little teaser, a sampler platter of some of the different strategies and a few of the key need-to-know things that you're going to have to keep in mind if you're going to go after some of these strategies. So buckle up because there's going to be a lot of awesome content coming, and let's give Barry a big warm Mogul welcome to the stage as he comes to speak with us.
How is that? Good? Got to talk a little louder. So fun to be here. I'm traveling with my posse tonight and introduce them. It's my sweetie pie, Donna. Donna, right there. There she is. My other sweetie pie, Adriana, who's been featured in Rain pictures since she's been 5 years old. She's just turned 15. Adriana. And my other sweetie pie, Richard Bell. My partner, Richard Bell from RMLO Law LLP. Richard, right there. Coming out to support. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about assignments. Richard and I put this presentation together. We worked on some of the documents, and we're going to talk about the basics. Been here before, and we did some other presentations on assignments, and we're coming back to kind of start at the beginning and kind of rework it right from the get-go. So, as James said, we do a lot of things. We do a lot of things, and I'm an investor, and I've written a book, and I'm a full-time lawyer, and as it says in that slide. And of course, there's a bunch of creative strategies other than assignments. There's agreements for sale and options and fix and flip and a bunch of stuff. And we teach about all those things, and you're probably going to hear about them from me from time to time. But tonight, we're going to talk about this thing called an assignment, and we're just going to kind of go through the basics of what an assignment is and how it works. And it's going to be, James had the kindergarten approach there, so keeping with that theme, we're going to have an exercise. It's not going to be a pop quiz, but we do an exercise. That's why the light is on, because you're going to have to write stuff, and you have to be able to see what you're doing and read. So you can do an exercise, and then we're going to have some case studies with some lessons learned about real assignments that folks have done that haven't quite gone the way they're supposed to go. A couple of them. So this is going to be a real chance for you to learn how to do assignments and to some things to avoid so that you don't get yourself in hot water and turn out to be a tail from the trench, which we'd love to do. We'd love to tell those stories of how you stuck your foot right in that big pile of steaming, So let's get going. So an assignment. So an assignment is fairly simple. All it is you have rights to something, and you transfer or sell those rights, assign, to someone else. You get control of something, you sell your control to somebody else. And in the case that we're talking about here, we're talking about a real estate purchase contract. That's what we are. We're real estate investors. We buy and we get control of property. So you find a property that you think is worthwhile putting an offer in on, and in this particular case, in this example, it's a property that is undervalued for some reason. You found it, you think it's undervalued, and you negotiate an offer, perhaps with James or Parker or Z or one of the very helpful realtors here, or maybe you do it on yourself, but you get your name on a contract. Get your name on a contract. Now you control that property. Whether it's conditional or unconditional, if you have a name on your contract, you're controlling the property to some extent. As soon as you do that, you're now in position to sell your interest in that property. So I see Eric right here. I'll pick on Eric. Why not? Everybody picks on you, Eric, right? It's been a, you know. So let's say Eric gets his name on a contract for a property that's $250,000. He's going, you know, with a little bit of lipstick and rouge, that place is worth $290 all day long. He gets his name on it for $250. He sees Karen, who he doesn't know. And he knows Karen's an investor. He goes, Karen, I've got my name on this property. It's not one I can handle myself. This is what I think it's all about. I think you can make about $40K on this if you put 5 to 6 in paint and cleaning up. What do you think? Karen says, yes. And Eric says, but I do want you to pay me a little money for giving you the control of the property. In this case, Karen pays him $6,000. So Eric transfers his right in that property to Karen for $6,000. Now he's negotiated his assignment. There is a one-page document that we're going to provide you, an assignment document. Pretty easy to fill out, and that's going to be our exercise that we do. So Eric completes the one-page assignment. He signs it, Karen signs it, and then got to get that money, Eric. That's the next thing, is Karen has to actually pay you. Very good, wasn't that sweet? Getting paid right now. Karen has to actually pay you your $6,000, and what else? Your deposit that you put on the property. That's what you want. There you go, you got to collect your assignment fee. Now, it says assignee serves notice on the seller. You're allowed to assign properties here in Alberta. There's lots of contracts and they say, buyer is allowed to assign the property, or any kind of contract. It says, buyer's allowed to assign. Sellers go, no way, I'm dealing with you, man, you can't assign that. Well, as a matter of fact, you are allowed by law to assign contracts here in Alberta. Seller can't prevent you from doing that. But once you actually work out your assignment, and everybody's put their John Henry on it, in order to make the seller deal with Karen, Eric should serve that assignment on the owner of the property. He should serve it on the seller, and then the seller has to close with Karen, who is the assignee. So get control of a property with some extra value in it, find somebody who would like to buy that property from you for some money, get your assignment document signed, collect your assignment fee, collect your deposit, and then that third party, the assignor, closes with the seller. So that's roughly how it works. Fairly straightforward. Yeah? Okay, we're done. Cookies. I mean, what could go wrong? What could go wrong, Margaret? I'm using this mic right. Talking into the side of it. I should be talking into this part of it. Yeah.
And he got distracted.
Yeah, I have a cold. All right. Oops, wrong one. Hiding the slide. Thank you, James. Okay, so there's a couple of things that go into writing offers. When you're writing up that first offer, lots of people like to, right at the very top of the first page, where it says seller and buyer, they like to write for the name. So let's say Eric's doing it. Eric would write Eric or nominee, Eric or assignee, right at the very top of the first page. So my suggestion is don't do that. And the reason I say don't do it is because banks don't like assignments. I don't know why they don't like assignments. What I've heard is that if Eric buys the property for $250,000, why would anybody pay him any more money? Like, that's crazy. Everybody pays full value all the time. But, so don't use Eric or assignee, John Jones and or assignee, because banks don't like it. There's a terms section in every real estate purchase contract. There's a terms section. So you write in there, buyer reserves the right to unilaterally amend or change buyer's name. So that allows Eric as buyer, when Karen shows up, to do an amendment form that says, I, Eric, hereby change the name of the buyer from Eric to Karen. Now, strangely enough, banks don't seem to mind that. They're very familiar with amendments and addenda to contracts. They just don't like it when it appears in that first line. Now, later, you're going to get the copies of these things. You don't have to write that down because I'm going to give you those actual words and you'll be able to take them home with you. Now, here's another one that I really like. This is kind of a political clause, I would say. Political clause. When Eric's going along to buy that property to start with, and he's talking to the seller, and maybe through his realtor, he's talking to the seller, it's a good thing, I believe, to say to a seller something like what it says in the clause. So you're obviously chatting directly with the seller, you're not going to use these words, but what you're really saying to the seller is something like, you know, I like this property. I like this property. I think it's got lots of possibilities. I'm an investor, but you know, I could possibly live in this property myself, or you know, I might just add it to my portfolio because I think it would be good in my portfolio, or I might find somebody else to buy it from me, and I might make a little money if I do that. You don't mind, do you? What does the seller say? I don't care whether you turn it into green cheese, as long as you pay me my $250,000. That's all I care about. Super, says Eric. Great. So this is a clause that you can write in the terms section, and it sets you up for whatever you want to do with the property later. It's a nice disclosure clause where if you don't do it, even though you have the right to assign, and the seller can't stop you, if you do it without, sometimes when Eric goes to pass the property on to Karen, the seller goes, well, you know what, to heck with you. You're making money on me, man? I don't like that. Yeah, I hear you. You can assign it, and I can't stop you, but guess what? And law aside, on a practical basis, if people want to dig in your heels and be jerks, they can be. So this is a clause that sets you up nicely for doing a few things with the property. Nobody seems to mind it when you put it in. All right. Darn, that middle button. Okay. All right, so assignments, where they work best. There's a couple of spots where they work. The first one is if your ultimate buyer is paying cash. So Eric has acquired for $250,000 and Karen has $250,000 to pay for this property plus her assignment fee. That works really nicely because Karen can just take it to close and pay and be done. The other place where it works is where the ultimate buyer, in this case Karen, is okay to get her financing based on her the purchase price of the original contract. Because what the bank's going to see when Karen goes for financing is a property that was bought for $250,000, and the assignment fee aside, bank doesn't care about that. So the bank will only finance on the basis of the purchase price or appraised value, whichever is the smaller. So the fact that it might be worth $290,000 after Karen does some work to it, they don't like to finance on that. So as long as your ultimate buyer is okay financing based on the original purchase price, it works pretty well. Karen needs to get financing based on $290,000. That doesn't work very well. They'll make her come up with the extra dough out of her own pocket. So that's one of the trickier aspects of assignments. And we're only doing basics tonight, but I did want to throw that in. So overall, where assignments are deceptively simple, there's actually a lot to them. And you're going to see as we work our way through the case studies where some of those problems lie. But there is a process, and you can learn how to do it. You should understand that the assignor continues to be liable for the property. So Eric, who is assigning to Karen, is still liable for that property if Karen turns out to be unable to close. As much as the seller has to deal with Karen, if Karen doesn't close, he's coming back to Eric. So you have to know that as a bit of a downside. So you always need a plan B, and maybe a plan C, says Parker. Yeah, maybe a plan C. Okay, so my crew here, my unready crew, didn't know when I was gonna. Oh, sorry, Donna. Did I say that?
Where was the signal, honey?
Where's the signal? I was supposed to give the signal. Get ready. Sorry, sweetie pie. I forgot about that. So they're gonna hand hand out an exercise. The first 2 pages are a summary of what I just talked about so that you can take that away. So the first 2 pages are what I just talked about. The next page is some of my law firm propaganda, and I put it in there, and you'll see why later. The 4th page, page 4, which is the exercise. It's a Mogul exercise, not just a regular exercise, it's a Mogul exercise. So the exercise is an assignment situation. This is a set of facts that's all about helping you or getting you to actually write an assignment.
Cool. That leading man voice.
All right. So I want you to read the exercise, read it over, and there's a summary of the facts at the bottom called the property details. And then you can turn the page over, and there is a blank assignment form. Blank assignment form. So I want you to read the exercise, look at the property details, and take a few minutes and just fill in that blank form. This is how you write and complete an assignment. So I'm just going to be quiet for a few minutes while we do that. Oh, now you turn over to the very last page of the thing. There's the cheat sheet. Yeah. Darn. I have to set it up. I have to put the law firm propaganda in the middle of the handout because otherwise the cheat sheet was right next to the blank sheet. So I have to at least make it on the other side. All right. So let's turn to the very last page. And so I'm hoping that you found your assignment form fairly easy to fill in based on that set of details. There's blanks for the assignor, Arnold Optimist and Peter Prophet. Dave Sodan, the landlord. That's who you're looking for, right? The guys who are so done with this property. Gotta get out. Of course, they're thinking that. They're not saying it's a lovely property. Yeah. Great tenancy. So you put in the various addresses, the municipal address, the legal address, and then the important bits up in the payment details in paragraph 3, your assignment fee. Other consideration could be parents giving up her Bosch mixer along with $6,000. Sewing machine, yeah. That would be other consideration. Anything that isn't money. And then return of deposit. Make sure you collect that deposit back. Here's the BMW. And so $10,000 is what, if Eric was doing this and he was Arnold Optimist, that's what he'd be looking to collect back. So it's really quite a basic form, isn't it? Really, if you look at it, the facts were not complicated. The form is simple. What could go wrong? I ask you.
Where's the book?
Randall says, where's the book? Okay, well, let's do something else then. Let's move along into, get this right side up, there we go. Let's move along into a couple of case studies. So, you're going to have to read these slides and kind of remember what's on the slides so that you can think about the deal that's going on. So we got a home in Calder. Who knows where Calder is? North area of the city. Been there. It's an older district. Been there a long time. This is a house in pretty fair shape. Not fabulous, but pretty fair shape. And the tax assessment is $249,000. Should have been 2017. I'm sorry, but 2016. Tax assessment is $249,000, and our eager investor that's his first look at what he thinks the property is all about. He looked at the tax assessment. And he's a tough bargainer, so he gets his offer in there, and the seller accepts at $230,000, so he's going, woohoo! I've talked the property worth, I think, about $249,000. I have it under contract for $230,000. So far, so good. Yeah. All right. So he's so happy he's talking to other investors, and somebody says to him, like, hey, yeah, it'll be tax soon, easy to sell, don't worry about that. Yeah, good deal, man. Excellent. So he removes conditions. And then he asks his realtor to pull some comparables for him. After removing conditions. Oops. So the comparables are, and the comps, yeah, the comparables are in the $190,000 to $225,000 range. How much did he pay? $230,000. And the comps are looking $190,000 to $225,000. Where did that $19,000 go? He goes, okay, well, no trouble. I'll just get a mortgage and get myself taken out of this, and it won't be any trouble. He forgot to remind himself that he had no income. Which is apparently important if you're looking to get a mortgage for a residential property. I don't know, it's unreasonable on the part of the banks, but apparently they want you to have some income. So, no financing for him. And, could he close? No, he couldn't close. Lucky for him, all he lost was his $5,000 deposit. A tougher seller might have pursued him and sold it for $198,000, and then said, my damages are the difference between $230,000, which is what you offered, and $198,000, which is what I'm able to get, and the comps prove it. So, not so good, man. Not so good. All right, so let's hear it from the crowd. What went wrong in this deal? What did you do wrong?
More diligence before.
Diligence before, and on the specific due diligence, I guess I'm going to have to ask Hans, because who's going to hand up saying what diligence did he not perform? Didn't get comps, didn't get comparables, didn't get real numbers to say, am I paying the right price for this property? What else?
Low margin of safety.
No margin of safety, says Bobby. He didn't have much margin there, did he?
I said
Everything had to go
low
right.
margin, low margin.
Yeah, low margin of safety. Did I see a hand there?
No pre-approval from the bank or pre-positioning.
No pre-approval or pre-positioning from the bank. Got to have a plan B. What was this guy thinking? He can't qualify for a mortgage, he has no income. My goodness. What about those tax assessments? What are those worth in terms of deciding what a property is really worth?
And sound paper ripping is?
Yeah, it says the sound of paper ripping. Yeah, that's what they're worth. I know when I get my assessments every year, I look at them, and some are up and some are down, and they're all over the landscape, and I'm going, who's figuring this stuff out? Any other comments on what might have gone wrong here? No? All right, well, I got a few. So the tax assessment is unreliable, we've said that. Know your area. Mulder. Full of old, small, beat up, close to the railway tracks housing. Not that there's not some gems there, and not that you can't find decent properties in there, but there's a lot of my Puna gallery, James and Parker. So it's not exactly buying in Westmount or Inglewood or Bonnie Doon that are areas that are popping and people want to be there. It's Calder, so you got to know your area. Took advice from another investor and went, oh, you think it's a good deal? Well, that's it. I'm good. I mean, if you just listen to some schmo who has an opinion, what kind of diligence is that? It's not. Biggest thing, did not get comparables. Should have asked his realtor to get him some proper comparables before he made an offer. I have to think he probably was working not very closely with his realtor on this thing. And, as we said, he had no pre-approved financing and no other plan B. You could have other plan Bs. If you've got someone who can write a check for you, that's a plan B. But you got to be able to close on these folks. You either have to be able to assign and get your money and move on, or if you can't, you have to close on the property yourself. So you got to be ready for that. Okay. Case study number 2. All right, so we've got a little house, 600 square foot bungalow. It's in the West End, 50 by 150. Immediately we're thinking, split those lots. Let's do a couple of 25s. Let's do the skinnies. That's what I was thinking. Gets it under contract for $278,000, which is pretty cheap, but it's in the West End, probably out there in JP or one of those other pre-amalgamation districts, bigger lots. Gets it under contract, immediately tries to assign it to somebody who's interested, doesn't make it work. But kind of moves on. Now we have a plan B because he's been off to see his banker ahead of time and he's pre-approved for $300,000 worth of financing. So that's better than our last guy, much better. What else? Gets that pre-approval on a Monday, condition day, financing inspections is a Thursday, keeps trying to assign and cannot assign it. All his prospects, all his network that he would go to say, hey, I've got a property under contract, do you want it? It's a good deal. None of those people are biting at the moment. So notice his pre-approval is only a pre-approval. Now he's back to his banker saying, well, I guess I need to get a loan. They quickly put together all the documentation. Our guy is kind of ready with everything he needs. Gives it all to his banker, who is 99% for sure. He's getting a loan. 99%. He goes, great, fantastic. Pressure from the seller. He writes a kind of short offer. So he takes his conditions off, and it's a 7-day close. 7 days until closing. 7 days until he has to pay the owner. But he still wants to assign. Oops. The banker comes back and says, gee, sorry about that. Our policy is houses have to be at least 700 square feet. Yours is only 650, so no loan for you. Ooh. Yeah, it's really a thing. I'm not making these up, Brad. Yeah, it's really a thing. And he keeps trying to assign and he still can't do it. But his uncle steps in. His favorite uncle steps in. They're buddies. He loves his uncle. His uncle, he says to his uncle, listen, I just have it. As my favorite uncle used to say, who used to sell aluminum siding, he was the ne'er-do-well uncle in my family. Everybody else is pretty, buttoned up. This uncle was kind of a drunk. Hey, he's a good guy. Anyway, he used to say, I'm temporarily short of funds. And he said to his uncle, you know what, we're going to make some money on this. I'm guaranteeing you a profit. Uncle says, great, because I want to make a profit. He's still trying to assign it. He can't do it at $299. He can't do it at $289. He finally gets a sale at $280. What did he pay? $278 wasn't it? In the contract for? They net $270,000 after expenses. It's a loss of about $10,000, and his uncle is choked at him. This was his uncle that he had lined up to do lots of joint ventures. His uncle's going, you know what, young lad, you can make it go. I can write those checks. But uncle is not writing any more checks, so he's lost a really good joint venture in this case, and $10,000. So, what lessons do we learn here? Hands up. Come on, you guys.
Make sure you're fully approved.
Make sure you're fully approved. Make sure you're fully approved. Yeah. You're never approved until the house is on the documents. You have to, yeah, pre-approval. Pre-approval is not approval to buy a particular house. 99 is not 100. It's close. 99% approval. When you're talking about do I have financing, what I like to say, and have people say it to their broker lender is, so I'm approved. That's great. I'm 100% approved. Yeah, 100% approved. Is that like totally unconditional? Yeah, it's totally unconditional. So I got nothing to worry about? Would you quit bugging me? I'll never give you another loan ever again. Yeah, you're approved. So it's 100% approval in writing on a commitment letter. That's when you got a loan. It's really important to know that. 7-day closing is way too short. Financing is tough these days, folks. We've had 6 major changes in the financing rules since 2008. 6 major changes. And it's tough getting mortgaging. Let me give you an example. I've owned some properties for 20 years. Mortgage with ATB. Started out at a number, and I'm now paid down so that the loan to value on the property is like 30% of today's value. And if I got the same mortgage that I got 20 years ago, I bumped the mortgage back up to what it was 20 years ago, I'd be at 45% loan to value on this property. And I said to ATV, I just want to bump it back up to 45% for what I started out at. Well, I don't know, Mr. McGuire. You know, that's, it's got a rental pool. We don't like rental pools. And, you know, it's out of town. We don't like out of town. Anyway, it was a giant hassle to move a mortgage that I paid every payment on for 20 years. My credit rating is pretty good. You know, it's tough to get financing. The 700 square foot rule, if his lender didn't know that was the rule with the finance people he works with, you need a new broker. You need a broker who knows the rules and is really up to date. That was a tough one. I didn't hear anything about comparables in that story. Went and bought and did without comparables. And, man, guaranteeing a sale? Guaranteeing a number on a sale? Man, oh man, oh man. That's a tough one. You shouldn't be guaranteeing things to anybody because lots of stuff can happen. So there's 2 case studies that make what is a deceptively simple process. There were lots and lots and lots of problems. There's lots to learn about how to put a property together and how to get financing and how to have a plan B and how to make it work for you. So, I had a few people ask me if they can get that assignment form. It says on one of the pages in there, the 3rd page, Parker, is it? At the bottom? Is it the bottom of the exercise? Yeah. Bottom of the exercise, yes. If you email my sweet pie Donna, she'll make sure you get a copy of the blank assignment forms that you can use for yourself. Oh, and there it is. That's our smiling faces. That's my partner, Richard Bell, who had to leave, and our corporate structure guy, Linda Thiessen, who does tax and companies and stuff like that, and me, who does lots of real estate. And that's the presentation.